Hello, and welcome to the workshop devoted to converting changes to the ScandiPWA theme made app design frontend directory to an extension. Extensions are a new functionality that is going to be available in ScandiPWA version 3 and higher. Without further ado, let's get into it. Which preparations do I have? I have a PayPal extension. Not an extension, but here in PWA folder, I have customizations that allow people to pay with PayPal. You can see it in work here. It renders this button and it makes this inactive when this PayPal credit option is chosen. Great. I have a PayPal component in here. That is a new one that does not exist in the original theme. And checkout payments component and containers extension. Checkout payments, of course, exist in the original theme. Here, in ScandiPWA folder, which is my vendor name, I have a PayPal GraphQL module that contains ScandiPWA folder and, of course, the backend that is required for PayPal to function. It contains a resolver that returns some information that is requested by this query in frontend. What we want to do is to fulfill this extension, this composer module, with frontend part, in order for it to be pluggable easily to any ScandiPWA powered project. I have a plugin file declared in here that has the following contents. So far it's empty. It has a class that is empty. It has a configuration that is empty. And it, of course, default exports that configuration. I have this plugin file already referenced in my ScandiPWA JSON in the root of my PWA folder. These are all the preparations I have. Let's get into it. First of all, we need to find out which original members of this class checkout payment are we going to modify. Let's take a look at the original checkout payments component from the source folder. As we can see, it does not have render PayPal method at all. Let's take it from here and put in here. Then we have payment render map declaration here, and we see that it's the original payment render member that is right next to the new content of this member, PayPal Express Credit Point. So this is the first thing we are going to modify in this class. We need a class construct plugin for the namespace that this checkout payments belong to. The namespace is component checkout payments component. The plugin we are writing is class construct plugin, just the same as for every other class property. We use class construct plugin for payment render map. And to this member, we give an implementation that we are going to create here. And the structure here. And a position of 100 that is a default position for every extension. You can find out more about the syntax that is used positions, implementations, different types of plugins. You can find out more about it in the documentation. Links to the documentation related to this topic are going to be in the description below. Let's return to this around payment render member function. The syntax of this one will be the following. It accepts as arguments an original member and an instance. An instance will be the component itself that we interact with, and the original member will be this member, modified by any other plugins that go before ours. Okay, and this function should return the new value. And the new value, as we remember, consists of the original member and one new thing. So we write it. We return an object that consists of an original member and this new value. We don't need it in here anymore. And we need these things in here. So currently our extension should wrap around payment render map. And when this option is chosen, render that it's not supported. It won't work. Why? Because this in here references this object. Notice that this is bound function just as every other function that we provided here. So to use render not supported from the component, we need to get it from the component, not from this, from instance, and bind it to instance. This should work. Render PayPal will cause some issues now. Let's transport it back and check if our new piece of functionality works. If we transported everything correctly. If we did, then render not supported should be triggered when the specific option is chosen here. As we see, it's not. Why is it not rendered? We can check in window plugins that we have this payment render map available and declared for this functionality. Let's take a look at where is the mistake. Let's cancel login here and check if our extension is triggered at all. As we see, it's getting recompiled. That's a good sign that our plugin file is referenced correctly and Webpack watches changes inside of it. As we see, it's not called. After a few minutes of thoughts, I came to the result. The issue that doesn't let our extension work is that we doesn't middleware this checkout payments class in here. In order for a class to be extensible, it needs to extend extensible class or a class that extends extensible class. So here we have a chain. We have checkout payments, source checkout payments from here, and they extend extensible pure component. So this point is done. And the second thing that needs to be done is, in order for class to be extensible, is middlewaring it and giving it the namespace. And now we should see that everything works correctly. Great, well done, me. And we also see the console log I put there. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Good. So we change the property. The next thing we need to do is to change this render content, for example. As we can see, this render content is different from this render content in only one way. It renders PayPal. This render PayPal method is actually what makes this great yellowish button to show over here. So, what we can do to make it work very similarly by using the extension. We can create a member function around render content, and here, just as we did with this round payment render map, declare a configuration for it in here and give it some functionality. And of course, remember to make everything in this plugin class a bound function if you want this inside of the function to be this plugin. It's not very important for this specific case because I don't use anything from this in here. But if I did, I would really need that here. And for around render content, I of course need it because it will call render PayPal. That is going to be a member function of this class. Let's transport it in here. And let's define the configuration. And now let's define the configuration. This plugin is going to be around the member of the same namespace here, but it's not going to be class construct, it's going to be instance get. When we plug around some member functions that are present on instance of the class, we use instance get plugins. Inside of it, we declare the name of the member we're plugging into, render content in our case. Default position and implementation that we are going to create here. It will be around render content. Remember to destructure it from the plugin in here. So, in this render content, we have the same arguments that we have in any other plugin's member function that wraps around a function, not around a property. Here we have only two arguments, that's for property. In functions around, we have three arguments. The first one is args, the second one is callback, and the third one is instance. And what we want to do is we want to return a block that consists of the original contents that are returned from this render content. And the new stuff that we are going to add in here. And this would be this render PayPal run member function. Notice that if this wasn't an arrow function, then this wouldn't work. It would give very faulty values. Because of that, you should remember to make every function inside of the plugin that uses this something from the plugin, a bound function. Okay, and we got to the part when we should render the PayPal itself. Let's take a look at it. It uses this props, the props of this checkout payments component. But this in here references this checkout payments plugin class, not our checkout payments component. In order for props to be correct in here, we have two approaches. The first one is not to call render PayPal directly, but to apply it to the instance. Such way, this here will be equal to this in here actually, but you got my point. The context of this function would be the component itself. And the second option, how we can do it, is to pass instance to this render PayPal function and get everything we want, not from this props, but from instance props. I like the first approach more, but feel free to use any one you like the most. Of course, in order for this functionality to work properly, we need to have PayPal component imported in here. So let's transport this import as well. We actually don't even need it in here anymore. Let's check once again. We have a plugin that wraps around render content member function of the original class, and beneath information that it renders our PayPal component. Let's check whether it actually works. It does not. Why? Because PayPal is not defined in Checkout Payments plugin. I probably forgot to hit save. I did not. This render PayPal is not a function in render content. Of course, I forgot to remove it from here. Let's check once again. I hope this time it works. Yes, we see our new component rendered in here. But this component still is present in the app design frontend directory. Why? Just because I didn't move it yet. Let's do it now. We need this component only in our extension, so we should have it only in our extension. But of course, I want it not directly in app folder, but an app component. The folder structure in here is just the same as in the original theme. ScandiPWA, app component, PayPal. And I want to change this to the actual import, because this is not correct now. It tries to import PayPal from this component directory, and it will fall back to source component directory and won't even look in this one. So we need to explicitly define where do we want the PayPal to be imported from. The first option is to just use the relative path, and from inside of the extension it's pretty convenient and a possible option to use. And the second option is to reference the extension by dynamic alias that's generated during the project's compilation time. This alias would be this directory capitalized ScandiPWA underscore PayPal GraphQL in Pascal case. Cases are really important here because JavaScript is a case-sensitive language, and if you make mistakes in this small and big letters, then you don't get anything. This alias references this folder, so to import PayPal from there we need to go to app/component. This is a bit longer from here, but it's a really convenient option when you're customizing something in the PWA folder. We have plugins fallback mechanism, and these aliases are used to reference original extensions classes from custom stuff that you write in app design frontend ScandiPWA folder. Great, but here we need this PayPal, and let's take a look whether it works or not. It does. Great. What do we have left? We have this query. That's the easiest thing to transport because it's the same as we have transported this component just now. All we need to do is cut it out of here, put it in here, and reference it from PayPal container correctly in here. Oh no, we don't want it in here. Don't save, please. Back, we get to the app/query/PayPal query. That should be correct. Let's check. If our query works properly, then we will get the PayPal button yellow and shiny. Yeah. Great. Let's get back to our component extension. Render content. We have done everything we could to that. The next thing is component did update. As you see, the component did update member function is not present in the original checkout payments component. To make it present, all we need to do is add it to our plugin the following way. It's going to be a plugin that wraps around a member function that does not exist. So the callback that we call inside of it is either the next extension or an empty function. To make it apply to our application, we put it in the same block as render content here. No difference whether the member exists or not. Instance get is what we use to declare plugins for instances member functions. We give it a regular 100 position and some implementation that we are going to write right now. We have the same arguments in here. Let's copy this logic from here. And we need the pref props. Pref props is the first argument that is passed to the component did update member function here. So we destructure it from the args argument. Of course, this props is neither correct because this references this plugin class. We need instances props. The pref props are now correct. Everything from here is correct. And of course, in the end, we need to call the callback. Because maybe some other plugin in the future will implement the component did update member as well. Currently, this callback will call nothing, but it's necessary because we think about the future. Of course, we can remove it from here now. Let's check if this works. It doesn't. Why doesn't it? Because this callback is an empty function here, and it fails if the callback is not present. So we give it a default value. If the callback is present here, it is called, and if it is not, the empty function will be called. It works. Great. I remind you that this is necessary for the future plugins. Currently, without calling the callback, everything will work just the same. What have we came to? We don't need this component anymore in here. Let's erase it and get to the checkout payments container instead of it. Let's take a look at the original container as well. In here, we see that we modified the select payment method function. Here we can see it, and what we see is this is absolutely the same here. Then on payment method select member function is triggered, just like in here. And then we want to set order button enabled status true in here. But here we set true only if the code is not PayPal Express credit. I have broken something. Wow. How? Oh no, it's not. This functionality pretty much disables this button here. Great. So to implement that, we need a new plugin file in our extension. ScandiPWA plugin checkout payments container. Let's copy everything from here because I am lazy and don't want to write a ton of code on my own. But we of course don't need it here, and we don't need this here, and we will have different functions in here. I'll comment it out so far. And we will have different declaration in here. Now we're plugging not in the component but in the container. We need to reference it here. And let's call this checkout payments container plugin, just as in here. It will have one member function around select payment method. And we are going to wrap around this one in this namespace. It's, as I have mentioned earlier, instance get plugin for this select payment method member function. Let's give it a regular position of 100 and an implementation that we're going to destructure from here. Great. The declaration process is not any different from the one that we saw in the previous plugin. Now let's connect this plugin file as well. This is an exact reason why we have this here as an array and not as a single value. Now we have two plugin files. Let's call this checkout payments container plugin. In order to connect this to our application, I need to reload the front-end container or to rebuild everything inside of it. The operation I performed now relaunches the build process for front-end container without installing node modules. If you restart the front-end container directly, you will get the exact same result, but in a bit longer time. While my front-end container rebuilds itself, I am going to implement the functionality I am working with here. So, select payment method. First of all, we need to call this. So, of course, we have arguments and callback and instance here. First thing we do is that we call callback on the instance. Actually, even apply to instance with arguments. And then, if the code is this one, that we set this to false. Okay. I have a font with ligatures, but I think it's pretty obvious that this thing is just 3 equality signs. So if code is PayPal Express credit, we want to call this function that is acquired from props. So we need to get it at first. This one from instances props, and then we are calling it on false. So this here sets it to true, this here sets it to false, and this should be the exact same functionality as in here. I think we can erase this now. Does it work? First of all, let's check our window plugins. It should be updated with new namespace, and we see it in here. Great. What's up? PayPal Express is not found in checkout payments component, says our PayPal container. Let's get to our PayPal container here and see that we import PayPal Express from checkout payments component. But actually we should have done that from here. So we write the relative path here. Back plugin, checkout payments plugin. This should be the correct option. In such way, we should get rid of that error message. Code is not defined in our plugin.js file. Of course, because we should get it from the arguments. So I don't actually know how is the thing here called, because this is pretty much the same thing as writing something and then destructuring a code from that something. This is the same that we are going to write in our plugin. We are going to get something from the arguments, and then we are going to get the code from something. Our project gets recompiled. And now the PayPal Express credit is not defined, because of course we don't import it correctly. Let's do that. Wait. Yes, no. We are already here. Of course, then we just need to do this. Let's watch our project recompiling once again. Great, everything functions properly. And the last step is to check whether it will without this member function. Yes, it will. Great, this means that we can erase this checkout payments here. And this component directory as well, and the subdirectory as well, because they don't contain anything for now. We don't need it anymore. And as you can see, we have nothing front-end related in our customization directory right now. All the functionality that our custom backend related to PayPal uses is located in the same composer repository as the backend, and it functions completely fine. Great! Our goal for today is achieved. We have transformed customizations that we made in app design frontend into the extension form. Thank you for your time and happy coding! Goodbye!